Live with Steve Perry on No Dumb Questions. KDQ, real questions from real people. I've been waiting on you, babe. I've been waiting on you, babe. Give me something. Don't know how to win. I've been waiting on you, babe.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to No Dumb Questions. I'm your host, Dr. Steve Perry. Really excited to be with you tonight. Typically, what we do is we have a guest on, and tonight you're the guest. We've compiled your questions over the past couple weeks, and they range from a coach jacking up a kid to parents dealing with the death of a father, all the way through some of the topics that are in the news today. The reason why we take this approach today is because it's good that the questions that you have are answered. I don't always get to your questions because we're talking to somebody who's so interesting. And if I'm going to be honest, I just want to talk to them and I want to hear what it is that they have to say. But today on No Dumb Questions, what we're doing is we're answering your questions. These are your questions coming straight from you. We pull them right out of the No Dumb Questions archive. They've been coming through in each of the episodes. And I want to let you know that very, very soon, we have another fantastic guest, Miss Yolanda Adams. Miss Yolanda Adams will be joining us. But before we get to Yolanda Adams, we're going to get to you, your questions. I believe, of course, the smartest person in the room is not the one with the most answers, but the best questions. So let's start at the top. Who do we have first? What's the first question?
First question is, have you seen the news about the coach down in Georgia who from Tri-Cities High School, Coach Miller, confronted a student who reportedly had a gun, and the coach has now been put on leave because the coach restrained the girl that had the gun.
So yes, I did see that actually. Thank you so much. So let me give you the scene. There was a coach who was in an office, and there was a young girl who had a gun. You could see in the body cam that the child had a gun in their hand. And the coach did what a lot of our coaches do. One of the reasons why we have a 2-sport requirement in our schools is because we want to be able to have brothers and sisters from the community who come in and help young people to develop into the people that they are, sometimes through sports. Sports is a great way to learn what it is that you need to do to become a member of a team and ultimately a member of a family and community. So this coach, Coach Miller is a freaking hero. What he did was the child had the weapon in their hand, and like a coach ninja, he slapped the fire out of her. Like, pow, hand right out of her hand, and then jacked the child up against the wall. And so what I'm told is that because of the way he hit the child's hand, the way the report is coming out is the way he hit the child's hand, that he now is fighting for his job. Because often what happens is the wheels of justice in systems such as these, education, don't often take into consideration the nuance of the circumstances. I want to be clear. We are always looking for talented people, especially people who care about our kids. Coach Miller, I want to be clear. Come to Capital Prep. We would gladly have someone on our team, in our family, who loves the children so much that they would confront a child with a loaded weapon. And you do whatever you got to do. If that child didn't want to get jacked up, they should not have brought a weapon in there under any circumstances. And so if he got rough, so be it. I'll take that all day. You ain't got to worry about me. You come work with Capital Prep and you'll be fine. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand the challenges that we confront in our schools. Now more than ever, it's becoming more and more dangerous. In fact, we're seeing things in our schools and in our communities that we've not seen in a generation. We're seeing the level of violence in our communities spilling into the schools. Gone are the days where somebody would come down to have a conversation with you as an administrator. Now they're coming down to hurt you. They're making that clear. I've seen it firsthand not too long ago where somebody was threatening to kill folks at one of our schools. You cannot consistently threaten the lives of individuals in the schools and not expect that somebody's going to come and at least jack you up. So what I want to do is make it clear that from our perspective, if it was Capital Prep, not only we had a job, I'd probably get a brother promotion. All right. So the first question was, Coach Miller out of Georgia, what do you think? I think he did everything he should have done. I'm not sure who trained him, but both he and those both the people who trained him and the coach ought to be lauded. Who's our next question?
Dewey asks, what can I do to help my kids that lost their father and her husband? He was a strong Black man who was our hero and an extremely positive human being.
You know, I have a very, very good friend, Brother Yusuf Salam, who is no longer with us. And as some of you know, on January 3rd, I had a stroke, which, according to all accounts, at very least, should have cost me my speech, mobility, and cognition. And I have lost another friend, Cleon Francis, brother of mine as well. And he's left behind 3 children. Black fathers matter. I know fathers of every community matter. I get it. And this is no disrespect to any other community, but Black fathers really matter because there are so few brothers who are handling their business as fathers. There's so few Black men who are standing in the pocket of responsibility to be there for their children, to be there for them, to put them to bed at night, to fight for them, to be in their lives, to deal with the courts when the courts don't want you to have access to your children. It is a real challenge to be in our children's lives. And then, of course, the racism that we often face outside of the house. So for Black men who are fathers, they're a special group. And seeing firsthand how hard it is for a family to reset after losing their father cannot be overstated. Again, everybody loves their dad. Everyone who loves their dad loves their dad. Everybody don't love their dad. He and my father and I he did not leave this earth with him and me on the best of terms. And that was because of some gnarly stuff that he did. But good dads of any race are solid and worth their weight in gold. However, Black dads, they're really special because Black dads find themselves being dads not just to their children, but to other people's children. It is not uncommon for many African-American fathers to find themselves purchasing cars that are much larger than the one that they need for their family. I had a third row until a couple months ago because I knew that anytime I picked up one of my sons, I was likely going to have 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 other kids. When you're a Black father, you have an obligation that extends beyond your own children. The expectation is when Black people see Black fathers out in the community, the expectation is that we are going to be fathers to all of the children who are out there, especially sons, but daughters too. Your first true love as a girl growing up is your dad. And he will help you to understand how you're going to relate to men for the rest of your life, presuming that is your romantic inclination. And sons, they work out what it means to be loving people. One of the challenges that I had with my father is I never learned how to love and be loved from him. He never presented himself as a tender, thoughtful, caring human being. He presented himself as an ogre. And as such, even to this day, when I hear the term father, I have to reset. When I hear my own wife talk to me about my sons being like me, that was so often used in my life growing up as an indication of how wrong I was going. When I was acting bad, when I was performing badly in school, when I was fighting in school, it was because you act just like your father. Good Black fathers, strong Black men who are standing in the pocket and doing what it is they need to do, they're worth their weight in gold. I cannot imagine what it is like to wake up in a bed that you used to share with a loving, compassionate Black father. I cannot imagine what it is like to have something that you want to share that you would normally share with your dad that you don't get to share anymore. I don't even know what that is like. And so to the family that lost their father, I want you to first hear from me my extreme condolences. People do have to die in order, and then other people live. It's just what it is, but it doesn't make the pain any less. So what do? There's no simple answer. One of the things you have to do is you have to hold on to the memories that you do have, the time that you did have. Let them be a place that puts the wind at your back and the sun in your face. Keep in mind that in the time that you actually had a loving father or husband in your life. And that's not a small thing. It doesn't carry you forever. It won't warm that side of the bed. It won't listen to the story that you have to tell. It won't correct you when you need it. But it is something that is worth doing. And then I want you to find people who were part of his life, because there's a reason why he brought those people into your family. Engage them. There is no replacement. None. Even if mom gets remarried, she may marry a wonderful other great brother, which is awesome, right? You'd be very, very lucky if that were to be the case. But it doesn't replace the father that you've lost. So what you got to do is connect to those people who your father put in your life, because he put them there on purpose. When I had the stroke, I had what I believe to be a mock funeral, and I got a chance to see who was going to be there and who wasn't. But one of the things I got a chance to see is all the people that I've consciously brought into our children and families' lives were able to support both men and women, Black and white, in a way in which I had always hoped that they would. So he did the same thing for you. He set you up. And so that's the final point. Engage in your legacy. One of the best ways to honor your father is to aspire to the things that he sought for you. The reason why he took you to football practice, a basketball practice, a dance rehearsal, the reason why he took you to art class, the reason why he came home earlier, left work late, the reason why he was there on the weekends. It was so that you could become something. So the best way to honor him is to live in his glory. All right. Next question.
Jocelyn writes, one by one, states are attempting to outlaw any lesson on critical race theory due to some misguided belief that little white children will feel guilty. Is this true?
So the question is from Jocelyn, that one by one states are outlawing efforts to teach critical race theory. I got to be real with y'all on this one. I see you, Carol. I'm sure you do miss your dad, and I cannot imagine that pain. I'm gonna be real with you. I'm the last cat to really get into this critical race theory conversation, because I understand what's really going on in schools, and I understand this is part of a culture war. That this is part of it at its best is a version. If we're going to have an honest conversation about what's being taught in schools, we should start with who's teaching in schools. The overwhelming majority of people teaching in schools are white. So y'all are sitting here fighting about what's being taught without looking into who's doing the teaching. I mean, it's just a misguided effort that really caught fire on the internet, where you have a bunch of thumb gangsters out there who are really hopped up on whether or not this critical race theorist is more important than the other one. But I'm here to tell you, as somebody who's in schools that we founded that are mostly Black and Latin, the most important thing is not critical race theory. When I talk to other Black and Latin school leaders, we ain't talking about that mess. We're not even, the only people really getting at this, and I mean this, the only people really talking about this are people on your local news. I mean, not your local news, your cable news networks, when there's not a war or something that stupid that the president has said. I mean, in the trenches, nobody even talks about this. Like literally no one. And if you got 10 people in the room who are Black and you said, what would you teach if you were to teach Black history? They would come up with at least 10 different versions of what they would teach. So there's not a single Black history or critical race theory. There are critical race theorists. It's not a singular thought. And if you can find someone who can teach that high-level concept to children, please, again, capital purpose hiring, bring them on. Y'all need to focus on what's real. Focus on the fact that the overwhelming majority of teachers are white. Focus on the fact that virtually every state has a certification law that makes it damn near impossible for Black and Latin people to become teachers. It makes it damn near impossible for people who are professionals, who actually do the things that some people went to college to teach. They actually do. You can't hire a journalist to teach journalism in a public school in the United States of America if they're not a certified teacher. You couldn't hire Barack Obama to teach high school history in Washington, D.C. He could build the presidential library in Chicago, but he couldn't teach in Chicago's public schools. Y'all are focused on the wrong stuff. Get off the internet. Turn off cable news. It's not news, man. It's not news. You want to focus on something. Ask the people who are in the trenches, hey, what's going on? How can we help you in the schools? And I would tell you, one of the first things you could do is get rid of these regressive policies around certification that stand in the way of people becoming teachers. Wouldn't it be cool if a coach who's been coaching for 30 years in this public high school could actually teach in that high school, wasn't just a custodian, wasn't just a security officer, wasn't just a in-school suspension person? I say just because they have more skill and knowledge than the profession that they have. But the reason they don't is not because they don't have a degree in many cases, because they don't have the certification. And that's put in place to make sure that Black and Latin people don't get a chance to teach. And that is why teaching critical race theory is not as important as it is addressing the issue. The very people who are so hocked up on teaching critical race theory are the same ones who keep in place the policies that make it impossible for your children to pick their own school, or for people you care about in your community to teach in your own schools. So in the state of Connecticut, there's a law that says that we must teach Black history. Awesome. 4% of the teachers in the state of Connecticut are Black. 4%. Who's going to teach Black history? We look dumb. When you spend too much time on the internet and you look at these people who don't work in schools, and you listen to these people who have theory after theory, or worse, you listen to some of these college professors all excited about whatever pedagogy they came up with to talk to white people about teaching Black people, then you're not talking to people who have any freaking idea as to what it is that happens in schools. They don't work in schools. They don't. They work at wealthy white institutions. So ask them how you teach wealthy white kids, because that's what they get paid to do. In the interim, if you really want to help your schools, make sure that every single child has the right to choose the school that's best for them. Make sure that more of the people who actually do the work get to do the work, actually get to come in. I'll tell you this, the final part as a point of focus. There's a sister who I wanted to hire. She went to Syracuse. And then from Syracuse, she played in the WNBA. After she played in the WNBA, she went to med school. She became a doctor, but she really just wanted to work with kids. So she came to our school, Capital Prep, and she said, I'd like to be able to teach in your school. And I was like, wow, just hold tight. I called down to central office and I said, hey, I got this Black woman who wants to teach science in our school. They said she cannot teach in your school unless she goes and gets a teacher certification. I said, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. She is a doctor. She's a physician. She teaches at the med school. She taught at the med school, but because she didn't have a certification, she couldn't teach biology to ninth graders. Y'all want to talk about critical race theory? I want to talk about the implications of racist policies that are destroying our access to Black and Latin educators, as well as the policies that limit our access to a quality education through school choice. Y'all don't really want to have that conversation. Next question.
Joshua asks, do you feel that the state educational standards are useful in teaching the students?
So the question was, do I feel the state education standards are useful in teaching students? I don't think most people understand what their state's education standards are. Your state's education standards, when you hear things like Common Core, are pretty straightforward. They're just basic skills. The skills are whether you can identify the author's perspective, meaning if you read something on the internet, can you decipher whether or not that author is a feminist? Can you determine whether or not they're African American? Could you determine if they're coming from the political left or right? That's a standard. Yeah, I think that that's a good thing. Another standard is that you can form an argument. That's a standard. Those are English standards. Another standard is if you can add whole numbers, if you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. Those are standards. What you, again, might be thinking about is this goofy conversation about people teaching your kids things that you don't want them to learn. I want to be clear. I believe that you should be able to determine what school your child goes to, so that when you determine what school your child goes to, you get to pick the school that's best for them, and as such get to pick the school where they teach what it is that you care about. I'm a school choice advocate. I don't want anybody telling you what your child needs to learn. When you're talking about the particulars, I was talking to a conservative cat, and he said, "Don't you think that third grade is too early to talk about gender?" I said, "I think it's too early for you. And as such, you're the parent. You should get to make that determination. But for other people, it's right on time. For me, I'm agnostic as to what philosophical underpinnings you have. But no matter what, your state standards have nothing to do with philosophy. In fact, you have very few states who actually have a history standard, just that it's taught, just that the dates and time, the dates and individuals of many of whom you know, some of whom you don't, few of whom are Black or Latin. That's the only course that you really get into it. English is another place where you won't see that many African Americans represented. But the standards are not, they're not left or right. The standards are pretty middle of the road. I would strongly suggest that if you have children in school and you have an issue with the standards, look up Common Core State Standards, English. Read them. Actually read them. I promise you're going to be stunned. You're going to be stunned if you've never read them, because you're going to think, damn, so when they're saying the child is below grade level, this is what the child doesn't know how to do? That's exactly it. They don't know how to find the main idea of a story. So a third grade English standard is that a child should be able to find the main idea of a story. Not that they can read a story, but they can find the main idea of a story. So if your child is in the third grade and watched Happy Feet, they would need to be able to tell you what it's about. That's a state standard. You mean to tell me that your child can't tell you what Happy Feet is about? I think they can. And if you're in a class where children are not being taught how to do that, you got a bigger problem. It's not the state standard. It's the people teaching. All right. We're moving. It's coming close to the end. All right. When is Yolanda Adams coming? All right. So next week, Grammy Award-winning artist, Stellar Award-winning artist, and just an amazing human being, Yolanda Adams, will be joining us. Yolanda Adams, she's just an amazing sister. And I think you'll be pleased when you meet her. She's everything. She's like the sister that you had in your head. She's exactly that person. She's everything that you think she is. She's super dope. So I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight on No Dumb Questions. As I said, for me, the smartest person in the room is not the one with the most answers, it's the one with the best questions. Please. Something that cannot withstand the weight of an honest question is too weak to depend on. Someone who cannot accept an honest question should question themselves. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. Hug somebody you love. Thank you.